curious, how many people have used find in Microsoft Word?
Right.
Okay. This, by the way, is impromptu. I didn't even think I was going to ask that question. Can you imagine using find in your web content, using Control-F across thousands of pages? It's kind of hard, isn't it? Who's doing that? Who's done a brand refresh? Anyone needing to change a brand name across your content? Some people? No? Right. So I'm here to talk about the biggest issue that drove us to create some products that help identify risk in content, and it happens to be very useful when you've got lots of it, which I suspect most people in this room have. We are VisibleThread Clarity Grader. The point of what we're doing is to measure two reasonably tricky things to assess. One, how clear is your content? Are you communicating to your customers? It's a question. Many who are in the university setting have personae that you need to attract. You need to talk to the parent, you need to talk to the student, you need to acquire a student, you need to retain a student. If you're in the county council, you need to talk to normal people without necessarily a high level of education. These are real business issues. They're driving, I suspect, most people in this room to do what you do on a daily basis. So we're all about measuring readability, clarity of content, and then secondly, measuring consistency. So if you pull away with anything from what I'm saying today, it's about content measurement to allow you to fix the alleged issue. So I'm going to share with you some interesting, what I hope are interesting, items around this, and give you some little background on what we are and what we do. So yeah, I've already said this, so I won't bore you to tears on this, but basically we work with a number of kind of interesting global brand players to effectively scan two things. The content that resides in documents, and Clarity Grader is a product that does the same job for web content. Clarity, consistency, easy, right? Not hard. What do we mean by clarity? Those of you with great eyesight, I unfortunately am not wearing my glasses, so I'm going to have to go over here and try to read it out to you. We'll be curious to try and understand this phrase. This is from plainlanguage.gov. Anybody familiar with the plain language community? I see some nods, some awareness, cool. The guys in the plain language community are very good. They are trying to make content and communication clear for the intended audience. Again, sounds very simple, right? But very tricky. Because as sure as night follows day, as sure as everybody here is different, I'm bald, everybody has different circumstances, profiles, intellectual capabilities. Writers also are equally different and all over the shop. So if you're striving for the same tone, it's going to be tricky. We're trying to measure some of this. This says, when the process of freeing a vehicle, it's from plainlanguage.gov, it's an example of bad content on a website, one of the US federal agencies in fact. When the process of freeing a vehicle that has been stuck results in ruts or holes, the operator will fill the rut or hole created by such activity before removing the vehicle from the immediate area. I've churned, I've gone off this site, there's no way in hell I understand what this is. Do you? What it actually means, if you make a hole while freeing a stuck vehicle, you must fill in the hole before running off, basically. That's what it means. And we're writing this kind of garbage all over the place. Apologies for even using the word garbage, but I work a lot with our US customers, so I'm a little cross-Atlantic on that front. We're trying to fix this. Here's an example of how we can start to measure the issue, how we can rank it, how we can fix, or at least look to start to fix it. We do a fair amount of work similar to Puro and TerminalFour, and we are great partners with Puro, and we hope to build on that relationship. We do a lot of work with Australian brands and universities. And this is an example of where we've taken the top 9 universities in Australia and we've scanned a good chunk of content on every site. That's what that list is. It's kind of obscured and obfuscated just to protect the identity of the innocent in this case. And you can see on the right hand side there's a number of stats, and I've blown up the basic stat on the worst performing site to show you that before we even get going, the readability level is characterized by the Flesh Reading Ease Index. Again, I'll go back to Microsoft Word. That's actually embedded in Microsoft Word. Some of you might be aware of that. But that shows me a level of 43. Now, I can tell you immediately that these guys are trying to appeal to students. That requires me to already have a student level education, because 50 and above is for somebody with a high school or secondary level education. It's a bit of a circular issue. They're putting out content that can't be read by the intended audience. Long sentences. In excess of 1 in every 5 sentences are above 20 words. And think about it, you're going to a site, you're trying to answer a question. You're going to a tax site, the inland revenue, wherever it might be. and they're presenting these types of complicated, hard sentences, which I'll show you an example in a moment, what's going to happen? I'm going to pick up a phone, I'm either going to call my advisor if I'm a wealthy individual, or I'll call your helpline, and I'll try and figure out what is your admissions policy, or what is your way of filing the form. Let me give you an example. We're working very closely with the University of the Arts in London. We're working on two core areas. One is readability. Now, I think this is kind of a really nice site. I like their site. They've spent a good deal of effort making the site nice from a visual and graphic design perspective, and that's wonderful. But this is actually their content. Now, you probably can't read this content. This is actually a screenshot from our product, showing in maroon passive voice and in a different colorization long sentences. But let me give you an example. That's actually real copy. Now, before you're thinking, do the UAL guys know that I'm speaking here? They love this deck because it shows how they're improving their content, and we're working very closely with them. That's actually content that they have. The learner registration process will not be deemed to be complete until the appropriate fees have been paid. What the heck does that mean? Now, a number of weeks ago I was presenting in Boston. In fact, I cranked this deck the night before I did the presentation. So that was live as a couple of weeks ago. And I took a quick stab in my simplistic little way. I'm not great at writing, but that was my stab. To register, you must pay appropriate fees. Right? That's what's actually live on the site, and that's the actual answer. Or at least my answer. Why would you care about quality or clarity on your site? A number of reasons. Time after time after time, it's been shown, which is in itself a passive construct. The academics, the students who study this have shown us that people scan on the web. In other words, they skim. You're looking for an objective to fulfill, you're looking for a task to complete, and you scan. So you're not going to read and engage with that content. The web is different from a newspaper, it's different from a brochure, it's different from that kind of print collateral. It needs to be scannable. You use tricks like bold, you use tricks like headings, and the words are really important here. So you're always looking for information, so you need to care about what is the information that would likely be searched for. Approachable language builds trust. If I neutralize my passive voice, if I go away from the kind of yes minister, yes prime minister vernacular of, and those of you who are old enough to remember that program will know what I'm talking about, but this political speak, you know, mistakes were made. Who the heck made the mistakes? That's passive, by the way. Mistakes were made. Mistakes, verb made, acting on. No attribution, no dialogue, no me-you dialogue. Digital content 101 and digital relations in this day and age of non-broadcast communication is all about a dialogue, a communication between me, the brand, and you, either my consumer or potential consumer. Consistency. This is a second plank of what we talk about in terms of readability and the value of the content analysis that we certainly do as a company. I'll share with you a little bit more about the University of the Arts in London. I'll keep an eye on the time. I think I'm doing okay. Again, same site, very nice. Very nice aesthetically. They've really done a great job. They're using TerminalFour for their CMS paper. This is what we refer to as a dictionary, and it's a dictionary of bad stuff, stuff that you really don't want to see on your content. And where did it come out? What's bad about it? These are all previous brand names that the various affiliated colleges used to use on their various affiliated sites. And now they're trying to unify the brand to call it University of the Arts London. That's the official brand. So let me pause. Is anybody kind of struggling under this weight of having to make sure your brand is consistently represented? Even your brand name? One, two, very few. So some nods, and maybe some people not brave enough to raise their hands or whatever, but who knows? This is an example of just one usage of a dictionary to eliminate quote-unquote bad language. Overly legalese language could be in here. Language that damages your understanding could be in here. I had a conversation this morning with somebody who dropped by our stand outside. And by the way, I should suggest that if you're interested in a free scan, we'd be delighted to do so. And please do come up to us and just give us your name and we'll run a quick scan on your site to see what we pick up from a clear language standpoint. It's always kind of fun and interesting and instant gratification. So we'll show you big yellows and hopefully greens on your site. But in any case, I had a chat where basically the problem was not the brand, it was course program, particularly those in a higher ed scenario, right? You all probably struggle with this thing. And I think if the memory serves, it was course program and study of something or other. There was a phrase that they were using. I don't know if anybody, whoever was chatting with me might remember that example. But in any case, the problem was that there was 2 interchangeable terms for a course. And in fact, you go deeper than that and you get the course name itself. It changes overnight. How do you ensure that it's going to be reflected consistently throughout your content? Same way with an offering that you're making. Let's say you're a council. You've got something like bin charges. How do you make sure that that's being consistently represented across your content? You don't, without some form of dictionary check. This dictionary is then applied. The top left here, just to make sense of it, is 3 different sub-scans of that site. We looked at the international section. In that case, we picked up about 120 pages or so, oriented for people who are not coming from UK, oriented for people who do not have the privilege, or lack of privilege, depending on your viewpoint, of having English as a first language, so won't likely be fluent. And that's why we're looking at that. And it's a very important driver for these guys because it's driving a lot of high-value custom. And I don't mean to reduce it to a business equation, but at the end of the day, that's what we're all here to do, is to make sure that the business of the university, the business of the council, engagement with prospective students, engagement with prospective citizens, or if you're in a private scenario, an airline, you want to engage with your potential people who might be looking at you in comparison to somebody else, that they get the message fast and they can take action. So what we're seeing here is on the left-hand side, this is the old set of names. The 3 columns on the right look kind of pretty. They almost could be a Christmas tree. Look at that, Android. Right? Anyway, each column represents each scan. We've done 3 separate scans and subsections of this site. And what you're seeing in the reds and greens is occurrences of the bad stuff. And that's the point. Doing that manually would take you days, weeks. It would be an entire project, 5-6 weeks project. Doing it with automation, which is what dumb automation is good at doing, it's minutes. That's an example of the content that we found. In fact, in this case, you can see University of Arts of the London. There's also a syntactic, a grammatical issue going on here as well. So this is the content that we're finding. We're drilling straight into it, we're banging out reports, and we're giving the reports to the editors and the content curators who need to make the fixes. We're not going to magically fix your content. That is no tooling is ever going to do that. We are going to help you size, measure, quantify, and guide where you focus your attention. That's really important. And if any tool vendor like me ever tries to tell you that they'll magically fix all the world's issues, don't believe it. It's not ever going to happen. So we'll facilitate that, but you are the judge of where you focus. Why should you care? Well, there's a number of implications to poor content and consistency. Searchability, which is a make-up word, and I apologize for that, but actually it was something that I heard somebody in the US talk about. Findability, searchability. The idea that your intended audience cannot find your gear. We've done some scans, and we also do a thing called discovery, where we tot up noun frequency on sites. And surprisingly, certain of these sites don't even mention students very often. It's bizarre. If I'm searching for a student course or kind of student activity, I would expect to be, finding content that's relevant to that. Now, Google do a fantastic job of using natural language analysis these days. With the latest issues of Google, it's much better at actually approximating and making the searches relevant. But if the simple word student is not on your site enough, or certain terms are not there, you're not going to actually get found by your desired audience. So that's a real issue. They may be confused. If you're talking about program or course, what is it? Is it a syllabus? Curriculum? Is the course name out of date? Have you gone and checked it out? In the corporate world, your chancellor, or sorry, in the university world, your chancellor is left. Have all the reference to that chancellor in the hierarchy being scrubbed on the site? In the corporate world, we see that a lot with kind of, particularly in the US, hirings and firings. Press releases announcing certain new CEO. SEO keyword strategy, maybe I did a little bit, I've talked about that. It's kind of a first cousin of the findability thing. And last but certainly not least, somewhere in your organization, and I'd be amazed if there isn't, there's going to be a book, and it's sitting on the shelf, probably. Probably not getting read, but it was actually a book that a lot of people spend a lot of energy putting together. And that book is called Brand Standards, Brand Guidelines. You know when people go a bit kind of bizarre or ballistic if you use the wrong logo? I've certainly been on the tail end of that one. I've kind of abused logos. It's the same thing for words and brand names. So those brand and corporate standards that you need to enforce on the copy is something that this product can do very quickly, and automation is very good at doing that. So in terms of the clarity and consistency element, I came here to share with you a little bit about the importance of why clarity is important, the idea of appealing to your audience at the right reading level, of why consistency is important, the idea of findability, SEO impacts, and the negative impacts associated with that. And I hope you found what I had to share interesting, and I'd be delighted to talk to you if you want to come to our stand afterwards. And some of my colleagues are here as well. And we can run a free scan if you wish, just let us know and we'll be happy to do so. So with that, I'll hand it back to David.